Welcome to the SoulAbility Superhuman Laboratory, where we uncover the secrets to upgrading your mind, body, soul, and business. I'm your host, Dr. Michael DiMarco, and in the lab today, we have a special guest, Melyssa Griffin. Melyssa is a rock star entrepreneur. She's an amazing person. We had an amazing conversation. She's truly a shark. And what I mean by that is you don't even hear her coming until she opens her mouth, and then you see these big teeth and you hear the biggest splash, and she just dominates everything she touches. So please give a warm welcome to Melyssa Griffin. Well, Melyssa, thank you for joining us on today's podcast. I'm so excited to share your story with our audience. So
Thank you. Yeah. Super excited to chat with you. I know we've got some good topics we're going to cover today.
Yeah. Just meeting you, you have you're kind of a quiet person at first. But once you open up, you're definitely one of the smartest people in the room, whatever room you're in. So I appreciate you really sharing your knowledge with everybody.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, I'm like one of those people who's an observer at first. I need a couple days to settle in, and then I'm all in.
Yeah. So what do you think? What do you think about that? Like introverts versus extroverts. What do you think qualifies an introvert versus an extrovert? Because I have some opinions on this, but I want to hear.
So I think it's really just about energy. Like for introverts, they get their energy by being alone, and being with other people kind of drains that out of them. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're shy or they hate being around people. It just means that they have less of a gas tank for being in groups of people, and they prefer one-on-one conversations, which I also love. And extroverts, I see more as getting their energy when they're with people. Like they can spend more time with people. Their gas tank is fuller in terms of being able to be in groups for a long time. And they might enjoy more group activities versus like one-on-one conversations. Yeah. That's my opinion. I'm curious to hear what you got to say. Yeah, cool.
That's. And
how do you identify?
I feel like I'm more of an introvert. Sometimes people don't think I am. They think I'm an extrovert because I see patients, and I'm outgoing when I have to be, right, in a group situation.
Yeah.
I'm comfortable there. But for me, I feel like I draw my energy from being by myself. Like I could be totally by myself. When I was a kid, my aunt almost forgot me in the back of the car. Like every time she would take me somewhere, she would tell my mom like she almost forgot about me because I would just sit there and not say a word. And I would just be in my own head.
Well, that's awesome as a little kid.
Yeah. And I don't how do you identify? I feel like a lot of entrepreneurs, really entrepreneurs and really just really smart people in general, just not saying that extroverts are not intelligent, but I always find that the smartest people identify with more introverted tendencies. Like, what do you think?
Yeah. So growing up my whole life, I definitely identified as an introvert, and I would take like Myers-Briggs and things like that, and always got introverted on that score. And then more recently, and kind of actually since I started my business, I've kind of delved deeper into the extroverted world, not really extroverted, but when I take like those quizzes and whatnot now, I get like 1% extrovert. So I identify almost as like an ambivert, where I love being around people. I could go to a conference, hang out with people all day for like a week and be happy, but really need time to myself after that. So I feel like in terms of energy, I'm kind of in the middle, but I do definitely have that kind of observational quietness sometimes, but then I can also turn on the outgoingness in certain situations too. It's kind of weird.
Yeah, I think actually more people are like that than not, that they realize. And like you said, it's where you draw your energy from. And those who draw their energy from the inside and see the power inside themselves, I think that gives you the power to be really successful, because you're not always looking outside for the answers, or you don't need as much coaching as somebody else. Like coaching helps, like learning processes. But at the end of the day, like you're drawing from yourself. You're not totally relying on other people to do everything for you. And I think that's a key.
Right. Yeah. For sure. Yeah, 100%. One other thing that I'll say about like the introverted extroverted thing is I feel I meet a lot of introverts, and I'm sure you do too in the online space. And I feel like I hear from a lot of introverts who almost blame their lack of confidence on them being introverts. Like, oh, I can't do video, or I can't launch a podcast, or I can't do this because I'm an introvert. But I think that comes more from a lack of confidence than it does from being an introvert. Like, I think introverts can do anything. Like, they're really special people too. So just throwing that out there, because in case there are any introverts listening, like, don't think of it as a limitation. Think of it as maybe a confidence thing versus an innate part of you.
Yeah. So you've gone through like unconfident periods, like I read, where you felt unworthy, and you were teaching this stuff to everybody,
Yeah.
and you somehow
Yeah.
broke through. You jumped anyway. Like, how did you get that confidence? I'm sure people want to know, like, what pushed you? What was your driving factor?
Yeah. So when I started my business, I was a teacher in Japan, and that was probably one of the lowest points in my life towards the end of living there. I just didn't feel like I had a community or people who really understood me, and I didn't have that sense of creativity. So I felt really unconfident. I felt unconfident in my job too, because I didn't really have teacher training. I just kind of jumped into it. So I was feeling lonely, feeling unconfident, and the thing that gave me confidence was just diving into my business and realizing that that was the thing that was going to bring me happiness. So I started it almost out of desperation or necessity. And then I realized that just doing it, like just putting something out there, was the thing that was starting to bring me joy. So I was like, well, what other stuff could I just do and like put myself out there with? And I just like took those little baby steps, like reaching out to people to collaborate, or posting a blog post that might be a little bit more vulnerable than what I normally post. And it was just those like little steps, and realizing that each of those steps made me happy and also made me more confident over time. So it wasn't like an overnight thing. It was like these incremental steps over the past few years.
How did you, in the beginning, you said you did collaborations with people, like how did you initially make those connections? Because I know in the beginning, like you're starting out, you don't really have as much to offer. Like you don't have a big audience yet to share to share their stuff with your audience. Like what did you do? Like how did you get them to say like, all right, yeah, I'll jump on board Melyssa Griffin's train. I'll be a part of it. Like how did you do that?
Yeah. Right. So two things. Like one, I didn't really go for people who had huge audiences. I was looking for people who are kind of one step ahead of me, so that it wasn't like I had nothing to offer them. You know what I mean? Like we were almost on the same playing field, but they were a little bit ahead of me. So reaching out to people in that space, and also just in the beginning, reaching out to people for fun stuff rather than like, I'm going to do a guest post on your blog and you're going to do a guest post on mine. But like organizing pen pal things with, I did that with another teacher who was teaching abroad. We did this like thing with our communities where we organized pen pals for people, and they could like send each other gifts and letters. And that was like super simple and kind of random that we did that. But it totally broadened both of our communities, and it was just built out of this need for having fun and doing things that felt good to us, but didn't necessarily bring us like clients or other networking things, like not necessarily having that in my mind, just doing stuff because it was fun and then seeing what happened with that.
So I guess just like having the right intentions.
Yeah.
That's so important.
Yeah.
It's so important to have the right intentions. Not just you can't go out there with desperation.
Yeah,
like
totally.
How many people do you meet that are like, hey, Melyssa, do you want to do something with me? Like, then you just feel like their intention is just for themselves, and it's not even to help you at all.
Right.
They don't really care about you. They just like want what you have. And they're desperate.
Yeah.
They think that they have nowhere else to turn.
Right. Yeah. And it's funny, like with business, I feel like we get into this mindset of thinking that all of our relationships have to be for networking. And it's kind of like when you just build actual relationships with other people in your space that aren't necessarily built on needing to get something out of that person, those end up being the people that give you the most in the end anyways.
Yeah, just add value, right?
Yes, exactly.
So like you, just to go back a little bit, you lived in Tokyo as an English teacher. Like, do you speak Japanese?
I do. I was a lot better when I lived there, but I do still, I'm like conversational, and I took a class over the summer to kind of brush up on what I had forgotten.
Did you speak it before?
But yeah, I didn't. I moved there and I didn't know a word of Japanese.
How was that? Did you feel like really isolated, just because you didn't speak the language, or maybe,
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm super just interested in doing that because I've never just moved to another country where I didn't speak the language at
Yeah.
all.
So I moved to a place called Akita, which is about 8 hours north of Tokyo, super rural. I lived in the middle of nowhere with like rice fields all around me. And so that made it a little bit harder just in terms of the fact that I was like one of the only white people that they had seen in their life. And I had so many interesting thoughts when I lived there, like especially in terms of communication, because my thought was I'll move there, not be able to talk to anybody, and kind of just get by and have fun. But what I learned is how much of our communication is done through things that have nothing to do with language, like the way we move our body or what we can do with our hands, just like little pantomiming, I think it's called. And also just like the feeling you get from people, and just being able to understand them from almost like just understanding their vibe or their spirit without knowing what they're saying. I thought that was one of the coolest things about living in a country like that. Just this kind of like sense of communication that exists in the world, and that we have it built into us as humans to be able to communicate with all other humans at this basic level, which was really cool. But yeah, it was kind of lonely sometimes. There was like 10 other foreign teachers, like from the UK and the US, who lived in my little city. So we got pretty close, did a lot of stuff together.
Just learning how to speak with your intuition and body language, I guess.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
You think that helped you with your business, like how you're doing videos and stuff like that? I would think it would, learning how to
Yeah.
express yourself
I mean,
physically.
Totally. Yeah. And just also being reminded of like this deeper connection that we all have to each other. I definitely think that's a huge part of what I try to bring to my business too. Yeah, that is
Yeah,
interesting.
just putting yourself in someone else's shoes without even being able to
Yeah.
talk to them or speak the words. Because there's so many
Right,
more forms of
exactly.
communication.
Yeah.
You just use intuition, body language. Like if someone walks in a room with like a certain look on their face or a certain posture, it tells you a lot.
Right. Yeah. It gives you that like deeper sense of empathy, I think, because you can really feel what people are saying. Even if they say one thing and like you can tell that they mean something else, it gives you that sense of like understanding what they
Oh,
really
yeah.
mean deep
It
down.
lets you look past the
Yeah.
words that they're saying and what they really, really mean.
Yeah.
Because people will tell you a story,
One of my friends,
and that may not be what they're trying to say to you. They might just be lying to cover it up.
right. Totally. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And what like a fun fact, my friend told me recently that I think it was like 60% of communication is done through non-verbal things. So your body language or the way that you like present your face or whatever. I thought that was so interesting. Like it makes a lot of sense, but I think we all assume that communication is just this verbal thing that we are talking to people, but there is so much that goes into who we are and how we present ourselves and how we perceive other people.
Yeah. I mean, we always think of like communication as just speaking, but other organisms, they communicate in totally different ways. Like even within our bodies, like our cells don't talk to each other with language. They send out signals and like energy and stuff like that. And
That is
right,
so
and
true.
animals communicate with way more body language. They don't talk to each other, as far as we know.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
like dogs barking, their barks don't really mean that much. It's more body language, like what they're doing. Like they pick up on that stuff.
Yeah. and even like scents and things like
Mm-hmm.
that. Yeah, that is really
Scent.
interesting. I think animals and nature is like so
Oh
cool.
yeah. And
So many cool lessons we
well,
can
it's
learn.
like the biggest lesson we can learn. Like it teaches us everything about ourselves and life.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah. So
absolutely.
with that said, like learning lessons, before this, we talked a little bit about meditation, working out, and you recently got into that, right? So what kind of
Yeah.
practice do you do, and what's your routine like?
So I was like very sedentary for the past couple of years. I just never really thought about exercising. I was like, I don't really need to, whatever. And it was my business coach kind of that prompted me to start exercising, telling me like you can't be at the top of your business game if you don't exercise. Your mental capacity is limited in that sense, and your physical capacity too. So I was like, well, okay, I'm going to start exercising. And he was like, you have to do it 5 days a week. And I thought he was insane. And so I started doing it. And now I do yoga most of the time and then spin classes other times. And I also sometimes do HIIT classes as well, which are pain in the booty, but but I always feel great afterwards. So yeah, doing that 5 days a week has been amazing just for the past like 2 or 3 months now, but I've been consistent with it. And meditation too. I've been working on doing that every day as well as just kind of part of my morning routine. I use an app called 10% Happier, which just kind of like guides you through it. And then after I meditate, I also journal. So I try to do 3 morning pages every day, just kind of whatever spills out for
Three
that
full
day.
pages in your notebook?
Yeah, and it's kind of like a small
Okay.
notebook, but and I usually actually go over the 3 pages. I just write until I feel
Hmm.
done. But yeah, that's been awesome too, just for grounding myself every
How long do you
morning.
meditate for,
I
typically?
I aim for like 10 to 15
And
minutes.
that's all you
Yeah.
really need. A lot of people they say they don't have
Yeah.
time to do it, and like if you don't have 10 or 15 minutes in a day, then you really need to reevaluate your day.
Yeah,
Like if
seriously.
somebody as busy as
Yeah.
Melyssa Griffin has 10 to 15 minutes, then you do.
Yeah. And I tell myself that too. I'm like you have 10 minutes. You need to do this right now. If I'm like, oh, I have so much to do today, and then I remind myself it's only 10
Yeah,
minutes.
sometimes you have like nothing's easy, right? There's going to be those days where you're going to try to blow it off or not go to the gym or not work out or maybe not eat so healthy. And
Right.
sometimes people do that and they blow it off, and that's okay sometimes, but then they use it as an
Right.
excuse to like stay that way.
Right. Or like, yeah, exactly. And an excuse to say like, oh, I'm not the type of person that can meditate because I fell off the
Yeah.
bandwagon, or I'm not the type of person who eats healthy. Yeah, it's like these stories we make up about
Right. And I think that's
ourselves.
so ridiculous to say, especially those two things. Maybe not everybody is built to be an entrepreneur, but everybody should take care of their body. Right. And everybody
Yeah.
has the ability to meditate. We all have a pineal gland. We all sleep at night. That every religious
Yeah.
practice in the world has had some form of meditation, whether it's prayer or literally meditating, or even just like going to the gym and just focusing on like a muscle and clearing your head while you're working out.
Right.
Like that's meditation too.
Yeah. And even like art, getting into that flow
Yep.
state of creating art. Yeah, there's so
Well, it
many
stimulates
things.
those theta brain waves, right? All those things. So you go into
Yeah. I love that you bring the science into this. It's
well, it's
awesome.
important, right? So
Learning.
you go to these
Yeah.
places and you see people that are like really into meditation, they're hippies, and they're kind of they figure out some stuff that works, that makes sense, like meditation, they feel better, helps them progress. But then they start going a little bit on the deep end and then everything esoteric becomes true without real evidence. Like one of
Right.
the things that I thought was really awesome, like so Jim Quick is in our mastermind group, and he had
Yeah.
the seminar over the weekend, and Dave Asprey spoke. And Dave Asprey, one of his things is focusing on mitochondria, how important mitochondria are, taking care of them, how damaged mitochondria are causing most of the problems in your body, how they're manipulating us
Mm.
to eat unhealthy and stuff like that. But what I thought was really interesting was the stuff with light and mitochondria. So light, your mitochondria have the ability to absorb light and react to light. They create energy because of light. They thrive off of light, but too much causes them damage of certain type wavelengths. But they also make light. So when we
Hmm.
hear people say like, I see the light inside you, or religion talks about the light, or these things talk about light, there's like a biological reason, a biological connection for the esoteric stuff about you're literally making light. Yeah, and if
Whoa,
you're
that is
unhealthy, you're
very
not
cool.
gonna, it's gonna be a little dim.
Yeah, right. That's
I
really
think that's,
interesting. I didn't know
yeah.
that about
I
mitochondria.
didn't even
That's
know that
cool.
either. I thought that was huge. About it the whole weekend, that's like the main thing that hit home with me, even though it wasn't even about.
Yeah, right. Is it so is there a way to like what were his suggestions on creating that light for your mitochondria? Is
So
that
like
right?
removing like blue wavelengths of light, like using a an app on your computer called Flux, F.lux, which takes away the blue light.
Oh.
So because your eyes have a lot, like almost your eyes, your brain, and your heart have the most mitochondria concentration in your body. So looking at a computer screen or on your phone, and we're bombarded with so much light all the time. The blue
Mm,
light can cause some damage to your eyes. It's like overstimulation. So it damages the mitochondria in
right.
your eyes, and your vision gets a little bit like less, right? And it also affects your skin. Like you absorb it through your skin as well. That's what the cold, like the lasers and stuff like that. That's what the lasers are doing. They're stimulating your mitochondria that we use in like healthcare. Um,
Hmm. That's so interesting. I'm going to download that app
yeah,
too.
and I think that's why you feel great when you go outside in the sun. It's the vitamin D, but it's also stimulating your batteries. Like these mitochondria are batteries in your
Right.
body, and you're like just turning them on when you're going in the sun.
Yeah, we're like solar
We
powered
are.
humans. Yeah, that is so interesting.
Yeah.
I have to research
It's
that more.
and once you hack that and you it makes sense to you, everything else becomes a little easier. Once you control your body, like your coach
Right.
told you to work out because it's so important. Once you can master the vehicle that is holding your consciousness and your mind, that just helps that amplify itself.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
you're just fueling it with more and more energy. Like we don't want our brains to decline over time and get like because that's all we have. That's us. That gives us our
Right.
ability to do this, to talk to each other, to help people.
Yeah. One thing that actually came out of my exercise regimen is I used to drink coffee every morning. It was just this habit, like, oh, I wake up, I make coffee. That's my routine.
That's
And
still not a
like,
routine.
not even
That's still
more power to you. But after I started exercising consistently, I started feeling like I was making coffee just to make coffee. Like I would make it and then drink like a quarter of it because I just didn't really want it. And then just one day forgot to make it. And then the next day I was like, oh, I didn't have it yesterday. Let me just not have it again today. And I just kind of unintentionally fell into this habit of not drinking coffee. And now it's been over a month since I've had any kind of caffeine. And it's amazing that I don't even need it. And I feel energetic because I'm exercising and getting energy from something else. And it's also kind of nice because there are certain times, like later in the evening, where I start feeling a little tired. And I'm like, oh, this is what my body should be feeling like at this
yeah.
time rather than just jittery all day long.
Yeah, absolutely. But I mean I still love coffee, but I totally agree.
Yeah.
And you so it helps you learn like freedom of choice. Like I don't have to drink the coffee if I
Yeah.
don't want to.
Right.
That and a lot of people need to learn
Right.
that. Like I learned that. I did a 5-day fast a few weeks ago. Like no
Wow.
food, just
No
water for five
food.
days.
No way.
That teaches you
Wow.
like so much about how much what you're putting into your face is choice and habit. So your
Wow.
habit was waking up and
That's so
making the
interesting.
coffee. So many people have the habit
Yeah.
of, all right, it's X o'clock, I need to eat breakfast. It's this time I need to eat lunch. This time I need to eat dinner.
Right.
This time I'm gonna have to have my snack. And if they don't have it, they freak out. When
Right.
you were like,
It's like an
right, it's an
expectation.
expectation. You set this expectation that you have to have it all the time. And if it doesn't occur, something bad is gonna happen. They're literally
Right.
addicted to it.
Yeah.
So when you
So
first start,
how did that
oh, it
go?
was. Actually, it was easier than dieting for a bodybuilding show. Because putting like action,
Wow.
so eating stuff that you don't want to eat for me is harder than just not eating at all.
Okay.
Just,
Yeah, I can see that.
just, just saying no for me is easier than saying
Hmm.
yeah, but I don't really like it because then you're not satisfied.
That's true. Were you like starving the whole time?
No.
Or did you get this like natural energy?
The first day was a little tough, but once I got through that, I just got this like energy where I was seeing patients all day and I was totally fine. Went to yoga. Yeah, I felt
Wow.
a little lightheaded on the last day. I'm not gonna lie, like going from sitting to standing,
Yeah.
and my heart started pounding really hard. I guess I was a little low on sodium, but other than
Mm,
that, I never really felt hungry. Like I think hunger is just that feeling like, oh yeah, I need to eat, so I should.
right. Like, oh, it's 12
Right.
o'clock.
That
Time for
that
food.
growling
Yeah.
and all that, that feeling of feeling like crap, that's not really hunger.
What is that?
That's addiction. It's a so did you feel like that when you stopped drinking
Mm.
coffee at first?
That addicted, I need coffee
Yeah.
feeling? Yeah,
That's the
totally.
same feeling that you get when you just stop food. It's the
Huh.
same feeling people get when they stop. I mean, drugs can be more severe and stuff like that because there's like a more physical
Yeah.
addiction, but it's almost the same thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's really
Like last
interesting.
year, um, when me and my wife went to Costa Rica and we did our plant ceremony, ayahuasca. You have to go on a diet, like a dieta that's called, and you have to remove things from your diet. And it's super simple diet, but for I love the way food tastes. It was tough. But
Right.
that also when you start removing things, you get that same feeling, even though you're still eating,
Mm. Yeah, that makes
because you
sense.
love eating. Like it just feels good to have food go in your mouth and go in your stomach.
It does. How long can people go without eating? Do you know?
Um, it's a few weeks. I don't know the exact. I think it
Oh,
depends
wow.
on how much fuel, like fat you have to burn
True.
and
That
how
makes
vitamin
sense.
deficient you are, how damaged your mitochondria is, it's how healthy you are. But it also forces
Mm.
you to get rid of all those damaged cells to be more efficient, to get rid of cells that may turn into cancer and stuff like that. And I would only
Right.
recommend it like doing under doctor supervision, making sure you are healthy enough to do it. But I mean, I'm a doctor. I did it myself, so.
Yeah, you're like, I could do it. I have my stamp of approval. Why did you do it? Was there a reason?
I just wanted to like test myself and also get rid of some of those cells that are causing damage. Because when I was a bodybuilder, like I was eating like 6 to 8 times a day, and I stopped that a few years ago.
Wow.
But I did that for so long,
Yeah.
like I don't know what kind of damage I was doing to myself.
Hmm.
And you get like as far
Wow.
as meditation goes, when you're fasted, you get like deep into meditation because your body's like focused on not focused on digesting the food, it's focused on just like getting into that deep space that you can get with meditation. Like so when you meditate, do you do any breath
Wow.
work or anything with it?
Like focusing on my
Yeah,
breath?
like breathing. Like I do a technique called the Wim Hof technique. He's the
Oh,
Iceman,
okay.
right?
I've heard of that.
Yeah, and it helps you get really
Yeah.
deep. Or a Kundalini yoga, I do occasionally. There's the breath of fire and stuff like that with yoga that also helps you get deeper. I took a breath class in Costa Rica, which was amazing, and you get
Wow.
like I saw stuff in my yeah. I had
Wow.
almost the same. I almost got to that same place I was able to get with the plant medicine, which was cool.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, I need to up my breath game because I think I just do something very basic. But that's really
Basic is
cool.
good. Even in my office, when we're treating patients, fixing their breathing, like simple breathing, how they're breathing, fixes a lot of their problem physically, like neck pain, shoulder pain,
Mm.
back pain. It's like a biomechanical issue too
Yeah.
from sitting. So if you're an
Wow.
entrepreneur, you sit at your desk all day,
Right.
like you have to fix your breathing.
Oh, yeah. Which is so interesting because we like there's these things that we just take for granted. We're like, oh, I know how to do that, or like you
I
don't
know how
even
to
think about the
breathe. I'm
fact that you know how
good.
to do it.
I'm still
Yeah,
alive.
I'm good. Yeah, I'm good on eating. I'm still alive. Like exercising, I don't need to do that. I'm still alive. But yeah, it's so interesting how those like things that we take for granted, we could just make some
Yeah.
shifts and be these new people.
Like I didn't break yet, so I'm not going to change anything. Like when does that ever work?
Yeah.
Like when it
I know, right?
like if you felt like that,
Don't wait till
like,
it's broken.
I have to wait until I'm broken to start my business or to change my life. Like if you waited, did you feel like you would ever have done it?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes I do. I mean, not to disagree. I completely agree.
It's
with that.
fine. You can disagree. That's what this conversation's for.
Yeah. Sometimes I do feel like this place of rock bottom does propel people to a better place. Like sometimes we need to hit that rock bottom to actually get to the place that we want to go. But then it also reminds us that, oh, I had the power to get to this place the whole time. Like I didn't need to hit rock bottom in order to propel myself here. I could have done it way sooner. But yeah, I think that both ways, like having that power to say, I'm going to do this even if it doesn't work, or my life completely sucks right now. I'm at rock bottom, so I need to make a change.
So with that said,
yeah,
I like to call rock bottom like
Yeah.
your superhero moment. It's like the moment that you turn the page, right, to become who you are. Like every superhero has their like problem, right? Their adversity, their thing that they're dealing with. And then somehow they break free. There's like a moment where they realize they have this power inside them, and then they become who they are. Like what was your lowest moment, and like what caused you to break through? Like what was your adversity?
Yeah. Gosh, I would say, I don't know, what was the worst
Yeah,
moment
it doesn't
of your
have to
life?
be one moment. I feel like there's
Yeah.
sometimes little moments that add up over time to become big ones. Like for me personally, I never had like that big moment. It was just
Right.
little things over time.
Yeah. I would say that one was kind of around when I first started my business. I had just moved back to California. I started my business like 2 months prior, was making like $2,500 a month, hoping that I would earn more so that I could pay my rent and survive.
Because you live in California.
And also, yeah, which is very expensive. And $2,500 doesn't get you very far here. And I was also like in high school and part of when I lived in Japan, and then kind of at this period when I started my business, I had like clinical depression and just wasn't feeling happy and wasn't feeling up to doing things. Like I had clients. I was a graphic designer for a couple of years, and I would just wake up and think like, I don't want to do anything. Like I can't even imagine going to my computer right now and working on their designs. It just is not going to happen. And I started telling these stories to myself about myself. Like I'm not the kind of person who owns a graphic design studio. I'm not the kind of person who makes X amount of dollars. And really during that unconfident period of just thinking like, I can't do this, it's not going to work. And I have this like depression that's holding me back. And I think my moment, coming out of that was, at the time I was very isolated. Like I didn't really reach out to that many people. I didn't really have any friends in the space, and I just kind of isolated myself and let myself like feel sad for myself, right? But then I decided to start putting myself out there more, and that was really when I started to reach out to people to collaborate with, and I started going to conferences. I started a meetup group. That was actually probably one of my bigger turning points. I started a meetup group for bloggers who wanted to volunteer, and the first meeting, like 4 people came, and one of them now is one of my best friends. That was like 3 years ago. And we did this, like we did charity drives, and we hosted this brunch for people, and all of the money we raised went to charity. And that was a turning point for me, because I started to realize that I wasn't like living in this isolated place. It was really up to me to be able to change that for myself. No one was going to do it for me. And also just finding like creating groups of my own. Like if I couldn't find other people to get to know, then I would just create a meetup group and get to know them through my own group. So that sense of community, of bringing people together and getting to know other people in my space was a huge turning point for me. And when I started my business, I don't think I really knew that much about myself and my personal core mission in life. I was just kind of like, this sounds fun, I'll do that. But that experience and seeing what I've done throughout my business has shown me that my goal with my business and just everything that I do in my life is to create community where people feel seen and heard and understood and loved. So I just realizing that was a big turning point for me too, which all kind of stemmed from this little blogger volunteer group that I started at one of my lower points in life.
How did you start it? Did you start online, or like did you use an app or a place? I don't know. I've never done that.
Yeah, it was called meetup.com.
Okay.
It's still around. They have tons of meetup groups on there all over the world. I actually started one when I lived in Japan too, for people who owned a dog. And they're great. Like if you move to a new place or you just want to get to know other like-minded people in your area, you can start a meetup group and people will find it. I forget how they find it, probably just searching on the website. And they can come to your meetup. And now you've got this little circle of people who have similar interests and you can do fun stuff together. It's really cool.
I like that. That's definitely helpful.
Yeah.
I think I might do that. Because like I feel like where I live in the Northeast, there's not a lot of events that are going on like there are in LA. And there's a lot of YouTubers and entrepreneurs out in LA. And it seems like a little easier to network for me, just what I've noticed.
Could be, yeah.
There's a lot of fitness professionals and the weather is great. So you can be outside most of the time, except for this past weekend when I went, it was 45 degrees. I don't even know how that happened, but
I know. Me neither.
But yeah, I think that would be helpful for a lot of people too, because not everywhere is like LA. If you live in the middle of America or in another country and you feel isolated and alone, that there's nobody else out there like you or on your mission or who can help you, maybe starting a group that's just free to network with, to help you and them too. You have to bring something
and to make it about like, and making it about like having fun and building relationships versus just this idea of networking. And I feel like you would be surprised with where those relationships might take you or what you'll get out of them. Like I said, one of those people now is one of my best friends, which obviously I wasn't even expecting when I started that group. But yeah, it's so cool, the things that happen when we release those expectations of certain things in our life.
Awesome. So like you've done some awesome stuff, right? You've broken through some adversity, became very successful in your space. What's your superpower if you had to think of one? We all have a lot, a few, but what's yours?
I feel like I've realized this more so in the past year, but my superpower, I think, is empathy. Like I feel this superpower inside of me to be able to connect deeply with people in my audience who I've never met, people who I'm trying to network with or something, and just like random people that I meet when I'm walking around outside. My goal and my mission is to make people, like I said, feel seen and loved. And I try to bring that into everything I do. And I think that's a big part of how I was able to grow my business pretty quickly, is just caring about people in the most pure sense of the word, and trying to make everyone in my community feel like they matter and they're not just like a subscriber or a customer, but like a real person that I care about so deeply. So I think that's huge, just empathy, which also comes with it, like vulnerability, being willing to talk about things that maybe you're a little uncomfortable with. And just being like a person that's cheering for all those people in your audience.
Yeah. Just feeling what they feel, right? Like putting yourself into their shoes and just realizing that we're all the same, like being them.
Exactly. Yeah. And setting up those opportunities for community. Like I have a Facebook group where people are very active. We're working on a membership site right now to build that community as well. I do meetups every time I go to a new city, like just trying to think of little ways to build that community with my audience so that they feel this deeper connection to what we're doing.
Yeah, well, I mean, not to underplay it, your Facebook group is pretty big. And you do help a lot of people. So, little audience, I don't know about that, but you're doing the right thing.
Well, thank you.
Definitely doing the right thing. I feel like whenever you do the right thing and you just try to add value, you're just literally trying to help yourself when you put yourself in another person's shoes. It just becomes easy. You just do the right thing and don't worry about the money aspect so much. Like it's there, it's a measurement tool. But at the end of the day, if that's all you're focusing on, no one's gonna trust you eventually. You might win short term, but long term, it's not gonna happen.
Right. And you're not going to feel happy. Like that was the thing that I realized in this past year too, is you can make a bunch of money, but it's not going to like help with any other problems you have besides monetary issues. Like it's not going to give you necessarily this abundance of confidence or like fix these other problems in your life. So that's why I'm really shifting my focus away from money and putting it more into how much deeper can I go into this community, because that will bring more money and it will bring more purpose and joy for myself too.
And that's what it's all about. Like you can be satisfied and fulfilled with not as much money as you think. Right? And that they've proven that the happiest people in the world don't have the most money. They usually have the least stuff. For sure. They usually have the least, and they're totally fine with what they have. They just are. They just be, right? They're just happy.
Yeah. It's more of a mindset than what you have, or completely a mindset, right?
Yeah. You can literally control your future with your thoughts. If you think that you're not good enough or you can't do it or someone else deserves it, then they're going to deserve it. You're not going to be good enough.
Right. It's so
And you don't have to be the smartest person in the room to be successful. Like you are very smart, but how many people do you know that are geniuses, but they just can't make it for some reason?
Yeah. And I like that you asked, what's your superpower? Because I think everybody listening has their own superpower. Mine, I feel, is empathy. Yours is probably something different, and everyone else's is something totally different. It doesn't have to just be like, I'm the hardest worker or I'm super smart. It's like, there's something deeper inside all of us that is our purpose, and that is our superpower.
Yeah.
So I
agree. Like you can think like something is your superpower. Like for example, I could say being a chiropractor is my superpower. But you have to really ask, why is that your superpower? Like the reason behind the reason.
And like it's not a thing.
No, and that allows you to do more stuff. Like why did you want to become a teacher in Japan? Because you liked helping people.
Right,
and
exactly.
That's the same why of what you're doing right now. Oh, it's the exact same thing. You're just a bigger scale. Yeah. Different audience, but it fulfills the same need.
Right. Yeah, which is it. Like, I feel like there's a lot of people who want to start a business and they're like, I have no idea what kind of business to start. But then I feel like if you just look back throughout your life, you'll see those moments that really define who you are and what you value, and thinking about how can you bring that superpower of yours into whatever kind of business you want to create, like using that as the foundation rather than becoming a chiropractor or becoming a teacher, right?
Yeah, and you have to also be self-aware enough to ask yourself, why do you want to start a business? Like, do you just want to do it because you want to make more money because you see other people doing it and it looks cool? Or is that really you? Because we all need people to work with us and help us build our teams too. Not everybody can be the alpha, the lead wolf, you know?
Yeah.
You need the other people to support.
Right.
That help you and
like
share
finding
vision.
the role that fits.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
That is so important. And it's something that we run into today where people think being an entrepreneur is so cool. Like, I've had kids as patients, and I ask them, like, so what do you want to go to school for? They're like, I just want to be an entrepreneur. I never thought that when I was a kid.
Me neither. I didn't even know what an entrepreneur.
No, I didn't even know what that was.
That was like an investor or something.
Yeah, as a businessman. I don't know. You just owned businesses, I guess.
Yeah.
Or one time I met this guy at the
Yeah.
gym. He was really weird. And he
Great preface.
he was really weird. He was hanging out at the juice bar that my friend owned. And he asked me what I did, and I was in school. He's like, "I'm going to school to be a millionaire." Like, what do you mean? What is that? This is before the
Oh, you go to the millionaire
yes,
school.
the millionaire school. He's
Cool.
learning how to be a millionaire. I guess that used to be the term for entrepreneur was millionaire or business millionaire, and
Oh,
businessman.
really?
I guess because $1 million used to be a lot of money. I mean, I'm not that old, but this was like 10 years ago, before you go on before Instagram existed, before Facebook existed, and you go on there and there's people telling you to become an entrepreneur, showing their all their cool shit, their car, their house, and like
Yeah.
you could be like me. And that is
Yeah.
not the answer. Like all the people I know who are really like super successful, they don't live like that. They have
Yeah.
the ability to live like that, but they're at a place where they don't need to show it off because you have that
Exactly.
confidence.
Right.
So
Yeah, it's so true. Yeah, it's all about just like staying true to you, who you were before you became an entrepreneur and maybe made money, and not like compromising your values just because now you have this new identity.
So, with the same vein as what's your superpower, who's your favorite superhero? And it doesn't have to be just like a Marvel superhero or like a typical superhero. It could be a person, it could be anyone in a movie, anyone in any story, anyone that has like a power about them that's changed, a hero, basically.
Yeah. Ooh. I'm like very inclined to say somebody in Harry Potter. I almost want to actually say J.K. Rowling herself. I feel like I just love her imagination, and I love the lessons that she infused into something so whimsical. And I also just love like who she is as a person. I read that she was a billionaire, but now she's not because she gave away like half of her fortune to charity, which I think is amazing. And she's often somebody who speaks up for injustices around the world. Like she doesn't use her platform to stay quiet. She uses it to show her audience and her followers like what she believes in and what she thinks is important. And I think that's really important. I know that that's kind of controversial among business owners, but I feel like if you're growing a platform and you're growing a business, like why not use it to share more of the values and to stand up for things that are really important to you. And it might drive some people away, and maybe those people are not your ideal community members, but it's going to end up attracting even more of those people who love and resonate with your message.
Yeah, those are the people you don't
J.K.
want.
Rowling is pretty awesome. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And those people who you do want are going to love you even more for saying something that they wanted to say themselves.
Yeah, that's a huge lesson. That's how
Yeah.
people like Tim Ferriss, that's how he built his audience. He focused on the people who mattered, to his core like raving fans, and not trying to please the masses. Cuz you can't.
Right.
You have to be you. You have to have your own community, your own people that listen to you and resonate with what you're saying and your message.
Exactly. And he still has a huge audience.
Yeah, he has a gigantic
It
audience.
definitely hasn't hurt him. Yeah.
And if you
Yeah,
think
it's so
about
true.
everybody, even you, right? You have this target audience, these people who resonate with you that are more like you than not. And if you
Right.
tried to please everybody, you wouldn't be where you're at. You just can't.
Right.
Like Dr. Oz,
Yeah.
for example, he kind of seems like he pleases everybody, like he's a mass appeal, but he doesn't really. Like a lot of people attack him and they don't like him and they think he has like pseudoscience, but he's helping his audience, and that's who matters. That's what matters to him.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's an important lesson too for anyone who's feeling that unconfident place right now, which often comes from this feeling of having to please everyone or create a business that everyone will like. And I realized that like not everyone is going to like me, and not everyone's going to like what I put out there, and that's 100% okay. It doesn't mean that they're bad people or that I'm doing something wrong. It just means that like we all have our own differences of opinion and the things that we do and we don't like, which is amazing, obviously. Amazing that we can do that. But yeah.
You just have to perception, just not whatever you like. I said before, like what you think about is going to create your future. Your thoughts create your future. So if you're thinking about not having the people around you that you need, or trying to please everybody and not focusing on the people that really should matter to you, it's going to show. You're going to create this reality that's not you. And if you try to be someone that's not you, you might be successful for a little bit of time, like you just copy somebody else. But eventually, like I call it the 3-year rule in dating, like after someone dates for 3 years, you can't fake it anymore. They become really who they are.
3 years? That's a long time for faking it.
Well, you have to put into, like, you can speed up that process by seeing someone every day, moving in with them right away. But if you're just like dating, like once a week, once every other day, like you're not seeing them that often, like a maximum of 3 years, I think it takes.
Yeah.
And then you see who they really are. But if you are who you are from the beginning, you just don't care. You just are who you are. You're so respectful, and it doesn't mean you have to be an asshole, but you just be yourself. Then you don't have to worry about that.
Yeah.
You don't have anxiety. Like so many people have anxiety, and anxiety is just fear that you're creating yourself. Like fear that people are going to find you out.
So
like figure out that you aren't who you were who you were saying you were.
Right. Yeah. And it's so much more fun when we do business from a place of realness, because I realized, like, when I started my business, I felt like I had to emulate everyone else to be part of this online circle. And it was really tiring, and it made me feel like I didn't know my identity. Like I would ask myself, what would Melyssa do in this situation? And I couldn't answer it because I just didn't know anymore. And that was definitely like not a great place, right? Mm-hmm. But starting to do business more from this place of who I am and not worrying about other people or if I was resonating with everyone on the planet, that made it so much more fun and so much easier too, to be able to grow a business that I loved.
Is there like one moment where you realized like, I just have to be myself? And then that was it. Or maybe a few moments. Like you can maybe sometimes think back to like one time.
Yeah. One that comes to mind was when I did my first webinar towards the end of 2015. And I was so nervous. I actually threw up before I did the webinar. And fun fact. And I was really nervous, but I was like, you know what? I'm just going to be my quirky, weird self. I'm just going to say whatever. And I had my presentation and whatnot, but I just like let myself be me. And I like said weird slang things and was just kind of like making stupid jokes throughout the webinar, which is kind of like my personality. And people loved it. And it was my first time like doing a live video, and I was so surprised that people were so into it, and not just into the content, but into my personality in general, which like propelled me to do what I'm doing now with courses, and I do webinars frequently also. And also just feeling like a more confident person, knowing that I can be 100% me and people will still like it. Yeah. So that was,
Just afraid of people not liking you. Like, who cares? They don't like people who aren't being themselves. I guess that's one thing you have to realize. So if you really notice, like anyone that you don't like or you feel uncomfortable with, or you just get a bad feeling about, it's probably because you feel like they're not being themselves. They don't align with what you think that they should be doing. So,
right. It's so true.
So with that said, I think this is a good place to end for today.
Cool.
It's so much where fun. Can people find you? How can they join your membership site, which it should be up and running by the time that this is up and running. And I highly recommend, I mean, I've gone through your Pinterest course and it's amazing.
Oh, rad.
Just the advice that you have and your insight on this stuff is mind blowing. And that's important. If you want to be the best person that you can be, like superheroes have to fund all their cool stuff. Like Batman, Bruce Wayne wouldn't be Batman if he didn't have money. So you have to learn how to make money.
Yeah.
And you
Yeah.
definitely know how to do that.
Yes. Well, thank you. Yeah, I would love to connect with anyone who's listening. My website is just my name, melissagriffin.com. And my first name has a funky spelling. It's Melyssa. And there you can find out more about my courses. I share things like income reports. And I also do blog posts and actually working on launching a podcast too. So all that stuff is on my website. And then we are launching a membership site that's going to go live around the end of March. And it's called Pursuit HQ. And it's basically just for people who want to pursue their best self, their best life, and their best business. So it'll have weekly videos and blueprints, ebooks, different things that they can download, coaching calls, an awesome community forum. And that can be found at mypursuithq.com.
Love it. Well, thank you, Melyssa, for being on the show. I so appreciate you doing this.
Yeah, thank you. Of course, this is super fun. We got to talk about a lot of really cool things. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. And we'll talk soon.
Thank you guys so much for listening to today's show. I really appreciate each and every one of you. Please do me a huge favor. And if you like today's episode and you want more people to hear about it, or you want to hear something specific, go to iTunes and leave us a rating and review. Or you can also connect with us on Facebook. And if you message us, I'll answer you. I'll answer any questions you want. Thank you so much, guys. And I look forward to growing and expanding my universe with you.